Julia Farr funded project was called the Shared Journey Project, and the idea of the research project was to try to identify ways in which peer support organisations can help people living with disability to gain more valued roles in their lives. When somebody sustains an acquired brain injury, in the early days they're supported in the health system. Peer support really seems to kick in, particularly in an important way, once people discharge from rehabilitation. When I work with Families for Families members, I saw in a lot of cases families are really stuck. They'd gone through acute care, they'd been given great support through the health system. Then when they left rehab, they felt very much alone and really not sort of knowing how to get back into life fully. So people in peer groups would often say, you know, I want to do more, how can I do more? And of course, if you're only spending that limited time with them each month, you can't really help them to do all of those extra steps. There's still this gap between when they're going to groups and they're kind of, you know, getting to know other people and that's all going well, to go from being active peer support members to gaining those really important valued roles in their community. Personally, I saw in a lot of cases people were really feeling less than they were before their accident or brain tumour, and they kind of struggled with the mental health effects of that, particularly feeling this less than. And I saw people really changing and feeling so much more confident when they were able to grab these valued roles in their lives, whatever that ended up being, whatever was important to them.
I've never stopped looking for a job. Sure, it provides me with that extra income and everything else, but that's by no means the most important part. It's the valued role.
I feel like I'm sort of standing on one side of a glass window and I'm looking out and I'm watching the world go by. It's like I can't get through the glass.
I did a lot of background research in terms of what were the issues relating to people with brain injury in terms of accessing things like economic participation and gaining employment and things. But all of those items are actually individual factors. They're all about the person themselves. My research has shown that actually in the cases I was involved with, none of the people had individual factors that were holding them back. It was systemic issues that were holding them back. So really this project was all about having a peer support organisation walk hand in hand with people who have already been members and already enjoy and attend a range of peer support groups to take that next step in their life post-rehabilitation, which is that they have a fully inclusive life full of valued roles that are meaningful to them. So the project started with a planning session where we brought people from all the different areas that were involved in the project, so 15 members initially, and they all came together and I took them over a period of 2 full days through a planning process. We actually had somebody go to each of the participants and help them to go through a role checklist. So the role checklist formed the basis of the planning process that I developed. This enabled people to really kind of see where things were missing or where things were going really well. We felt that it was really important to make sure that the individual who was the participant was totally free to pick whatever role they wanted in their life, what was most important to them. You know, what floats your boat? What do you miss perhaps as something that you used to do? Or what's some ideas of something that you think you might like to do that you haven't tried? So in the project, we took a very person-centered approach. What I was most surprised with in the planning phase of the project was how easy it was for people to come up with their goals. Everybody in that room was really clear, really quickly, about what they wanted to focus on. So in one case, for example, the meaningful role was to organise her own calendar. This person wanted to be an independent planner. In another case, somebody wanted to gain employment in a particular field. And in another case, somebody wanted to become a public speaker. And everybody had sort of very varied goals. What would you like to do in your life?
Work.
That's a good answer.
I want to be able to do things I used to do. I don't mean things that I can't do. They're things I used to do.
If I got back into doing woodwork, I'll feel like me again.
People knew what they wanted to do, they just didn't know how to get there. What was so frustrating in many cases was the fact that these weren't kind of really complex, difficult issues to resolve. It just took some knowledge, and it took someone who knew how the system worked to kind of break down these barriers. So in all 15 participant cases, we were able to make headway towards meeting their goals. And in many cases, what was stopping them was nothing to do with them as an individual or their family situation or anything like that. It was a system issue. The rollout of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, occurred at the same time as we were actually doing this planning process with participants. So in many cases, the planning that we were doing for individuals to come up with their project plan also linked in directly with their pre-planning for their NDIS planning meeting. So from the project's perspective, what I wanted people to be able to do is to really put on paper what they wanted to do within the project period so we could actually work towards those goals with them. But concurrently, they had an NDIS planning meeting to attend. And so what ended up happening is the information I was putting together for their project plan also was being used for their NDIS pre-planning. Many people just turn up to their planning meetings without really having thought very much about what they need. In this case, people were able to talk about all the different things they might need before that planning meeting. So for instance, if someone was talking to me about wanting to gain employment, then I might talk to them about what sorts of things may be able to be included in their NDIS plan that could assist them to reach that goal. What it also highlighted though was the fact that the people that I was working with had no idea how to do this pre-planning independently. I felt sometimes that I was the interpreter for some of the project participants. And it's weird because you don't think you should need an interpreter, we're all using the same language, but actually you need to speak in disability terms, often with the NDIS to get the outcomes needed. And my participants in this project couldn't do that themselves.
I got the NDIS package and I'm very pleased. They will help, but no one from the street can help you. And that's no good. The people out there are the ones that need the help. And we need the help. And there's other people that are worse than me. And what will they do?
The NDIS currently is not accessible for people with acquired brain injury. In many cases, the project participants fed back to me that they don't know where they would have been without that additional support that I was able to provide. So really, the NDIS is this amazing idea. It's the dream system, but currently for people living with acquired brain injury, there are massive issues in terms of access, and there's also significant issues in terms of having effective outcomes from the planning process. Really, the only way that I see currently this working is if people have somebody walking hand in hand with them through both of those processes. Now, peer support organisations are perfectly placed to be the people that walk with them through that process, but I don't feel that peer support organisations have the knowledge and the expertise to provide the one-on-one information. And they're also not funded to do so. There are some cases where people seem to have this dream run through the NDIS. So, I supported the person to do pre-planning, we attended the planning meeting. Quite often participants asked me to attend, which I did. They got a great plan and it's worked perfectly. And those cases give me hope that it can work brilliantly. One of the really important findings from the research undertaken is firstly that people had really clear ideas of what they wanted to do. Secondly, that people were able in all cases to achieve great progress and in many cases achieve numerous goals that were set during the process. What's also clear is that the system needs to be altered to provide better supports for people living with disability at the coalface. In most cases, people were still completely unsure of what to do with their NDIS plan once they actually had it in their hand. One of the really wonderful, kind of unexpected outcomes from the project is how many people in the project talked about improved confidence. And so I was kind of having an accountant hat on. I was ticking off the goals people were achieving. But it was this psychological change and the shift in attitude and the increased resilience in these participants from their involvement in the process of the project over a period of 15 months. People literally said to me, I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I could see that they weren't the same person that they were a year ago. And that was incredibly fulfilling for myself personally, but also really encouraging because, you know, it wasn't rocket science. It was giving people the ability to talk about their goals, get together regularly, to share those experiences, and just to have a single port of call to go through the issues when they came up. It wasn't that difficult to get those amazing outcomes for individuals. Participants were really clear about the fact too that they got something different from these group sessions, from standard peer support group sessions. They talked about the fact that everybody in that group was all focused on working towards specific goals, and they felt that that sharing of people who were in the same mindset at the same stage of their journey was really helpful and important to them.
I feel confident with the project. It has made my eyes open, and I feel that the project is making me step up and do.
I dare to say that I'm starting to like myself, and I suppose you could do a bit love myself.
I learned a lot. I'm still learning every day.
For me, the project provided the opportunity to sort of to gather in a safe place and to be able to openly share my experience, my challenges, my accomplishments, and learn from what others people have experienced. Without the project, it would be, you know, we might have had these ideas in mind but not be able to sort of put them into place.
Every single participant in their final surveys and every family member who was surveyed also all said they would love the project to continue. So we're so grateful to JFA Purple Orange for funding the project, and we're really excited to share the findings that peer support techniques can absolutely increase people's community participation, and that people know what valued roles they want, they know what's meaningful for them, they just need that extra help.
Oh, it's very important. And so I feel like I'm now very important again.